I want to be their best support, and I want to be their number one fan and their cheerleader, and just help them achieve what they're here to do.
Welcome to Trial to Triumph, hosted by Caleb Johnson, the show about leaning into life's constant testing on your way to realizing your biggest blessings.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Caleb Johnson, host of From Trial to Triumph, where we speak to people who have gone through trials and have come out triumphant on top and have succeeded and learned from those trials. Today, I'm with Eli Davis. Eli is a management company owner. He is a veteran. He is a father, and I'm really excited to speak to him today. Eli, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Caleb. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, Eli, just to start off, I'd like to, give our listeners a quick backstory of just where you started from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably a longer story than most, but I'm just a high school graduate, 1999. Spent a year in college. It wasn't for me, so I chose the military route. I joined the service in June of 2000, and I had a little run there for a little while. I was on the invasion of Iraq, and I actually had a break in service for a little bit, and then that's when I got my real estate license in about 2005. I've always had a passion for real estate and just investing and understanding, learning more. And um, about a year and a half later, I actually joined back up, got back in the military, and went overseas for my second tour. And I ended up spending another 8 years in the military and two more tours overseas. And I was medically retired in July of 2014. And um, when that came about, I just went full bore into real estate and came home, started actively selling, started working with investments, and I launched my company in November of 2015.
Okay. So it sounds like, and I really appreciate your service, and I know a lot of guys that have come back from that with PTSD, and there's a lot of challenges there. So thank you for that. I'd like to talk a little bit about what you've learned from that. I know being in Iraq that there's a dynamic there that's a lot of us can't fathom or understand. So what role did you have over there?
I was I did 3 tours overseas, two in Iraq, one in Afghanistan. So every time I had a little bit more higher leadership role. I was just a team leader overseeing a team, my first one, and I was a squad leader, and then I was acting platoon sergeant. So, my career in the military evolved, and my leadership, I had more responsibilities each time, and different challenges came from that. I'd say the number one thing that I learned out of the military is, you without um, is just being able to push through things and put your mind in a place that even if you don't think you can do something, you physically, mentally, whatever it is, um, you can push yourself further than you ever thought imaginable. And that's just given me a lot of my work ethic that I've carried into my business. And I grew up in that home. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. My grandpa was World War II. My great grandpa World War One, and so pretty much all the Davis men just had a different work ethic about them. And I was just raised to, there's no excuses. We just got to figure it out and get it done. And I think that also helped me in the military. But what I learned from those challenges in the military helped me in my civilian life. And so I'd say I took away a lot of just being able to understand that I can push myself further than even my mind can imagine.
Mm. And the power of one more, right? And just not quitting, and that's so impactful for business and military as well. And when you were most of when you say just keep pushing, is that more on the mental side or the physical side, or is that a little bit of both?
It's definitely both. When you're actively engaged in the military, our bodies, usually and ideally are in tip top shape and condition and can withstand a tremendous amount of you know physical exhaustion, and you can push your body to so many limits. But where most people break down is mentally, and the moment that the quit and those types of things start to creep in your mind, that's when negativity and all those things start to set in, and questioning, and it just, those were never options for me. It was just, we're going to go until absolute complete failure. And whether it's physically, mentally, whatever. um, you know when you're 3 days into a mission and you've had no sleep, and you're just beat down, in every which way possible, um, you can dig a little deeper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What are there, and I think that sometimes people just have that, like you said, the Davis family is just, that's just runs in our blood. What are some actionable things that you think can help people take that and just understand that I'm not going to quit? Is there, I mean, gosh, are there daily habits, or are there times where it's really defined in a person, where you know what, if I quit here, then I'm just not going to go forward. Are there actual habits that we can use to do that?
Absolutely. I'm a big self-talk person, and I'm a firm believer that positivity is infectious, but negativity is also equally as infectious. And I've always chose to see, my glass is full. I want to be on the positive end of things, and not to a point where I'm unrealistic about expectations, but I don't go into something looking at, what's the fail point. I look at, what do we have to do to keep going, whether that's I just do a lot of self-talk, to be honest with you. I do a lot of self-reflection, and I'm my own number one fan. I'm also my own number one worst enemy. And when we let those things creep in, and we let doubt creep in, and the moment you start questioning yourself, then that can take over and feed into a whole different realm. And so those things were just never an option. Failure was not an option. I had guys to look after, and we had missions to accomplish. And so whether that's being a dad, whether that's being a leader in the military, or that's being a leader for our business, I've still got to show up no matter what happens. And there's no part time for me. This is it. And so when you give yourself zero outs, it's hard to talk yourself into failing, or um, falling short. You can just self-talk your way through it. I mean, I got to motivate myself sometimes, and those disciplines are hard. They're easier said than done sometimes. But whether it's books I read, whether it's looking in the mirror and talking to myself, and just positive reflection, being showing a lot of gratitude for the positive things in our life and the things that are going well, instead of finding the things that are not going well. It doesn't mean ignore them. It just means look at it with a different perspective. And it may not be working right now, but that just means I've got to change my plan, and I've got to be adaptable, and I can't just be one track minded. And this is the only way. You've almost got to be a chameleon, and able to adapt to your environments, and what's coming to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I made that mindset shift in high school, for me, that was, uh, you can't. Sometimes you just get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and sometimes, especially being around people that are negative, that is something hard to get over. But whenever you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you say, you know what, I am done. I'm done with being the glass half empty. It's going to be half full. And I think surrounding yourself with people that are like that as well, really helps me personally. But it's just so important to surround yourself. And you said, like, books helped you, and sometimes you just have to. There's no excuse. You just have to make that mindset shift and say, man, stuff happens, and we're just gonna move on to something else, and there's a bigger and better plan here. And I think you hit that right on the head. Hmm.
One of our biggest, I would say the most common phrase we used in the infantry was embrace the suck. And yeah, I mean, it's very true. And business sucks sometimes, and there's challenges that come, but you just got to embrace that and, you know, figure out a way.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, transitioning into the business side,
Yep.
I know there's been some uh, things that you've taken away from your military background and have translated that into business. And I'm sure
Yep.
there's some things that maybe that you don't translate, and some things that you really do. What has been a couple of the biggest things that you have been able to take away and learn from the military that you've been able to translate into a business, and it's translated into a very successful business?
Uh, you know, I can't pinpoint necessarily, one or two things, but I think a lot of the things that, number one, I was raised with, but number two, the military really focuses on is, your integrity, your core values, your honesty, and, doing the right thing, even when the door's closed or whether the door's open, no matter who's watching, you still have to be accountable for yourself. And, and as you're starting a business, you've got other people and employees and agents and people that rely on you. And it's just I hold myself at a very high standard, almost an unachievable standard sometimes. But I think if I'm always shooting towards that next level and I don't get complacent with life or where I'm at, and I stay focused on my goals and how can I be the best leader for my family? How can I be the best leader for my employees? And I don't even call them employees; I call them team members. But how do I be the best leader through that? Um, and obviously, I fall short. Nobody's perfect, but I own my failures. And if somebody on the team has missed something, well, then I take that as a leader and say, well, what did I fail you at? Where did I miss? And how do we get back to getting on point? And what can I do to help you? That's the number one thing I ask my team all the time. How can I help you? Um, I don't tell them how to do their job. I hire the people that I trust, and I hire great people. And this the only way any of this is possible. You can't do everything on your own, and so I want to be the best support, and I want to be their number one fan and their cheerleader, and just help them achieve what they're here to do. And so I take that. I'm just I hold a very very. Um, I'm not the most disciplined person, but I hold a very. I try to set high disciplines and standards, and I hold myself accountable when I fall short.
I think you said something so good that I want to stay with a little bit. And before you even said it, I had it in my mind, and then you hit it right on the head. So I'm so excited that we can talk about that. But I've read a book a couple times called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and if you're into leadership, I would highly recommend that book. And Eli, you said it exactly. How if my teammate did not do something that was part of the plan, or a mistake happened, what did I do that was what was my shortcoming,
Yeah,
right? Because as a leader, you're responsible. That's in your job description,
no
right?
doubt.
And I think that's really important in leadership, and you obviously have that there. What else? When it comes to hiring or having teammates, or employees, how does that relationship work? Because you can't always be buddy buddy, right?
Yep.
There's flaws in that, and you can't always, you can't always take the responsibility, and there has to be some accountability there on them as well. So how do you take that relationship, if that makes sense?
Um, well, so I'm not the guy that, I don't yell and curse and belittle and beat people down. I look at it again. Everything rises and falls on the leadership, and if somebody's falling short, then I want to help get them where they need to be. Sure, they're going to be held accountable for what, their rights, their wrongs, but at the end of the day, I still have to own that maybe I missed a step or maybe I didn't do some training. But ultimately, I when you own your own business, you get to choose the people that you're around, and there's just certain things that I've learned over the years in hiring people that I'm looking for, and it's not necessarily the most talented for the position. It's not necessarily the most educational background. I go for a lot of personality. I go for how, the respect nature that people have, and their positivity, how they carry themselves. I can teach people the job. What you can't teach people is customer service. You can't teach somebody how to be able to speak to a client or a customer, which ultimately is a reflection of me. And, I can have extremely well qualified people that are, overqualified in some aspects of the business, but if they don't have any personal skills and they can't communicate with an owner or they can't communicate with a tenant, I take that punch. And so I've just kind of adjusted my focus to hiring more on personality and capability versus, uh, you know, what it says on a resume. And so I'm very big on interviewing, getting to know somebody, talking to them, and and not everybody's 100% fit. I get that, but I can teach people the job. I can't teach people the basic customer service skills that is imperative in the business that we're in.
Yeah, let's touch on that, because since you own a property management company and you've owned that
Yep.
for 15 years, the even on the employees and hiring side of things, I'm kind of going through that phase now where I will eventually hire an executive assistant or a virtual assistant, and that's a little bit different to actually having a W-2 employee.
Yep.
But whenever hiring somebody, what are some maybe red flags? Because it's really hard whenever you sit down with somebody and they got their makeup on, they got their cologne on, and it's a first impression. And of course, everyone wants to look good on their first impression.
Sure.
So maybe what are some red flags that you've seen, or what are some things that have really worked for you to hiring the right person?
Um, you know, I guess some of that's the questions that we go through. I pull a list of questions. I'm looking for responses. The very first thing that I look for is timeliness. What time did they arrive for their interview? Anybody that's on, like, if it's a 10 a.m. interview and they show up at 10 or 10:01, they're not a fit for me. Not that you have to be 15 minutes early to everything in your life, but I'm looking for somebody who wants to be prompt and wants to be timely, and respects other people's time as well. And so I look at that. That's number one. And then once we get, if we get down and they've met that criteria, then I'll have the interview. But I've turned away a tremendous amount of interviews for timeliness and not proper planning. And so that's giving me unfortunately, it's a terrible way to judge, but it also, I am judging, based on what they're going to be as an employee based on that. Um, and then it's just really question, intuition. Um, I get a good feel for people, and I've been terribly wrong and I've been terribly right. So it's I don't know if there's a good answer that I've got for you, to be honest, but I've just learned over the years what I am looking for and what I'm not looking for in people. And I don't know if I can really articulate that, but, sometimes I just know. And, and I'll say I take that whether it's bringing on a new agent. We have a full brokerage, and I've got, a ton of agents that sell, and, um, they're not an employee of mine, but they're still a reflection of our company. And so, I don't take just every agent that walks in the door with a real estate license. I want people professional. I want people that, truly want to be a benefit to their customers and their clients, and are going to do good work. And so, whether it's hiring an agent, hiring a maintenance staff, hiring somebody for property management, all of the above, it just, I'm very big on certain personalities, and I mean, I don't know if I still have everything figured out, because I still fail miserably on the hiring side of things. Hiring employees is probably my number one challenge for sure. Usually 1 out of 10 are extremely talented, but it's never the first one. So, that's just a part of the process. So,
Hmm. I think you. Oh, I had a thought there, but it's so just again the extreme ownership and knowing that that person is a reflection of you. And you did give us a good piece of advice, just a takeaway on the timeliness. I heard maybe in Think and Grow Rich, but I would rather be 3 hours early than 10 minutes late, or I would rather walk around the office for 3 hours and be early compared to being late. And it's funny, the first time you and I met in person, I was 30 minutes late.
yeah,
So
but yeah, plane
that was
delay,
good.
that's acceptable. It's but if
Yeah,
you were
so
in
that,
for an
that was funny.
interview, and you had it planned out a couple of weeks or a week in advance, and you knew that you had to be here by 10 a.m., then as an adult, I would expect you to account for traffic, account for things that may come up, and plan your time accordingly, to where no matter what happens, a traffic jam or whatever, it's not going to set me on the late side of things. And so, I just try to properly plan to be early, and I don't do excuses. So, that's the other side of it. It's we all have them. They all stink. There's never one that's good, and so, again, we just go back to ownership of that. And um, I think it's extremely beneficial when people. It says a lot about a person when they care about their timeliness and their promptness, and showing respect to others. And so, I know it's very minimal, and it's not the only way to hire somebody, but it is a basic level, to weed out a lot of people, because you'd be surprised at how many people show up 10 minutes late for an interview, or show up right on time, or call at the time of the interview and say, hey, I'm in traffic and I'm late. um, those are just non-negotiables for me.
Yeah, it's a red flag, and I get that. And one time I was giving keys to a tenant, and she was giving her security deposit and first month's rent, and she was dropping it off at my work back then. But she showed up in tights that had marijuana leaves on them, and I was like, "You're gonna meet your landlord for the first time in marijuana pants, And if you smoke, that's a decision that you can make, and that's all right. But it would, again, first impressions, just not I wouldn't want to hire that person.
Right? Yeah, I mean,
But
I agree on
learning
that.
lessons.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, learning
Now, I
lessons.
have marijuana pants, and I wear them all the time, but I wouldn't wear them
Hmm.
to my job interview.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Those tights are class A.
Mine's more
um,
leaves all over it. So
uh-huh, uh-huh. So on the investment side, I know you're a big investor as well. So
yes,
let's
sir.
talk a little bit about what you like to invest in.
Oh, this last year, I've been a little all over the board. I started out in single family home. Um, I love multifamily. I just recently contracted my first development. So we're in the now doing a duplex, full duplex community. So I've got 27 lots, and so we're going through that process. Um, done a lot of Airbnb stuff recently. Again, I'm looking for returns and what's winning in the market. We're very successful here. I've got Airbnbs in Fort Worth. I've got Airbnbs here, and we just recently contracted our second one in Tulsa. So, pound for pound, return wise, they're performing exceptionally well. So I'm a huge fan of that. with multifamily, it's just trying to find the right deals that make sense. So, there's a lot going on. I don't necessarily look away from anything. We're really looking at redeveloping some office space right now for multifamily and creating. Office space has really got pummeled, since COVID, and it's taken a little bit of a hit, and there's more vacant space sitting right now than I've ever seen. And so, but what are we lacking? We're lacking housing. We're lacking high end residential and apartments and things like that. And so, I've seen some very successful investment groups redevelop office buildings, high rises into high end residential. And so, we're starting to gravitate towards that and identify some great potential redevelopment opportunities.
Okay. Now, I are you partnering with people on these where you have different roles? Maybe someone brings some money.
Yeah, so we come in as a GP on a lot of stuff and syndicate. We're actually going through the process right now of all of our paperwork to setting up a full REIT. So we're going through all our SEC compliance and things of that nature. So I think there's a lot of opportunity with that. So we're going through those steps and challenges now, and we're just trying to forecast, the need. I think we're going to have a huge opportunity coming to us, all of us, in the next 12 to 18 months, even longer, with things going back to the bank and being able to take advantage of those opportunities. What I've learned, I've got a history of doing some short sales and bank negotiations, and a lot of times those banks, they want to get them off their books, and but they don't want to sell one at a time. They want to sell 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. And when you're dealing with some of these bigger banks, and being able to take down those opportunities when they come is ideally what we're trying to prepare ourselves for.
Hmm. Now, on the partnership side, whenever you choose a partner, it could be maybe someone that brings, again, thinking like a GP partnership. If someone brings the money, someone brings a deal, someone's asset managing, but that's a marriage, right? You're gonna be married to that person for several years. So, what are some things that you look for in a partnership that, yeah, that might be a red flag or might be a green light?
Oh, again, there's a lot of intuition, goals. How do our goals align? What are we trying to accomplish? If you start out of the bat and you can't get on the same page with anything, it's a key indicator that the rest of this process is not going to go much better. And uh, it's really, what are our alignments, and what are your strengths? What are you bringing to the table? And for this development, obviously, I don't build on a daily basis, so I needed to have a quality builder that I could trust and bring into the mix, whether that's to just do it and for their fee, or do they want skin in the process. And so, and how does that come? Does it come in the form of monetary value, or does it come in the form of, hey, I'll handle all the construction, I'll get these things done at equal to or below cost, and stay on track with their performance metrics of what they need to accomplish for us all to be successful. And so, it really just depends on what the opportunity is. I've partnered with a tremendous amount of people on single families and Airbnb stuff, just because they want to get into the space. They don't have any desire to manage it. They've got some money. They need to get it to play, and so we'll handle the rest of it. And everybody's very successful in winning at that. So, um,
It sounds like you find the person that is at the other end, or they have what you don't have at the moment, or maybe you have something that they don't have at the moment. Like you said, the Airbnb experience, and if someone wants to uh, put their money into that kind of opportunity, then you're the guy, right? And you can
absolutely.
manage that. You have the systems in place, but it sounds like it's all just about finding or partnering with the people that are at another, maybe they have another strength, or
Mhm.
maybe they have a weakness that is your strength.
Yep. I,
Hmm.
you know, I really like finding people that are very meticulous on financials, running numbers. That's when I'm out hustling and doing deals all day, it's, I almost get consumed by running numbers and financials, and I'm obsessed with it. But what I found is over time is I end up missing out on deals because I'm not out going and finding the next deal or next opportunity. I'm so busy tied up doing that. And so it's benefited me a lot to get some of that off my plate. And I do more of the high level, refine, look at it, supervise it, make some edits as we need to. But, people that have those strengths that are very meticulous, that want to take those things on, they've been very successful partners with me in the past. And so, whether it's monetary, we can always utilize more revenue to go place. And, so that's always, we all have our own strengths and capabilities and limits. So, it's really just having a conversation of what are you trying to accomplish? What are you looking for? And what are your expectations of me? That's obviously a two-way street on any partnership is, what are your expectations of me? And then that way I have a very clear defined um, path to progress through that relationship. So,
Yeah, I haven't heard a lot of that where you say what are you expecting from me, right? I think a lot of people go into a partnership and think what can this person provide me, even
mhm.
if it's what are their strengths and what are my weaknesses, and will that work together? But you took it another step further, and I haven't thought about that much myself. But what what do you need from me that will make this work?
Yep.
I think it's almost like writing up a contract, right? You say we're gonna distribute funds this day, and everything's just lined out. And so, if those expectations are talked about up front, that might save on an awkward conversation down the line. 6 months or a year. So
Oh, and I've always been very transparent. Let me correct that. I haven't always been as transparent as I needed to be in business relationships or partnerships. And so I'm very clear now that anybody that I, have a conversation with about any type of partnership, whether it's we're just providing management services to a new client, like I still want to know what your expectations are of me. What do you, Caleb, expect? Me, and that way, if it's something that I can't ever give you, then I want to cover that up front. But if it's something that's very reasonable, then uh, absolutely. And if it's not something I'm doing but it makes perfect sense, then I'm willing to adapt and change. I can't just, it's not one size fits all. And but I also, let people know, hey, we're going to have very transparent conversations, sometimes challenging conversations, but just understand that's part of it. Because when something's bothering Caleb, but he doesn't tell me, and he sits on it for 3 months, so then he's going to be upset. And 3 months, it's like I can't make any corrections with what I don't know. And I don't go into anything with blinders on, thinking that it's all going to be, unicorns and rainbows on the other end. It's, I understand it's, this is real money. These are real wins, real losses. And so, I take that very personal. And so I want to know that I'm fulfilling my expectations of you, or what you expect of me. And so, um, and I've had terrible partnerships that taught me that, things that I didn't ask the right questions, or, there wasn't enough transparency. And so I try to learn from all my experiences, whether positive or negative. I try to take something away from it.
that's good.
And how do I
That's
do
that's
it?
some Yeah, that's some great nuggets there. Eli, I think we're gonna wind this down, but really enjoyed today, man. It's been great. I'd like to ask you three questions before we depart. One
Okay.
is if you can recommend to our listeners a book that's really had an impact on you, what would that be?
Um, Man, I'll tell you, it's not what everybody's going to expect. It's not some raise money or real estate syndication books or anything like that. It's actually it's a book called Fearless. It's the Adam Brown story. Um, I recommend it to anybody. If you truly want to understand what overcoming trials, overcoming obstacles in your life, and being triumphant on the other end, he that his story is one of the, I mean, it gives me chills to even talk about it, think about it, is one of the best um, stories that I've ever heard. I mean, he was an absolute hero, and the things he overcame in his life to achieve the top level of things that came his way. I mean, it's a very, very incredible book. And so that's actually one that I try to read almost. I have two books that I read yearly: The One Thing and Fearless, the Adam Brown story. So
Okay. Adam Brown. I haven't heard of that before, and now I'm really intrigued. Um, Adam Brown. Okay, I wrote that down so I can read that myself. That's why I love asking that question, man. That's a selfish question, so so I
no,
can
hey,
learn what books to read.
I challenge myself every year for a certain number of books, and uh, to challenge my own mind and to read and educate, and but that's definitely one that I would put on everybody's list for sure.
Okay. And where can people learn more about you if they want to learn how to work with you, or just read more about your story?
You can absolutely find me on LinkedIn. I'll be completely direct. I'm terrible with social media and literally interviewing companies to help me with social media presence right now. But I've been kind of a recluse when it comes to stuff like that. I just put my head down and go to work. And but you can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm just old school. I'd rather just let's get to know each other. Let's have a coffee. Let's have a conversation. And my I've said this phrase since I was a child. There's no strangers in the world, just friends I haven't met yet. So I'm a very approachable guy, and I love to meet and hear people's success stories and get to know new people. So
Okay, I like that. And if you could give our listeners one piece of advice to take away from today, what would that be?
one piece of advice that I use every day is just get it done, and just no matter what it is, it's what you want to do, what's on your mind, what you're thinking about doing. Go for it. You're gonna fail. You're gonna skin your knees. You're gonna fall face first some days, and there's gonna be challenges. You're gonna question your sanity, um, but you're not gonna have any of those opportunities if you don't try. And you got to go for it. I mean, there's been plenty of times in my life where I try to talk myself out of doing something, or here's the pros. I try to make good decisions, but make a plan to accomplish what you want to accomplish, and then execute it. That's another phrase. Failing to plan is planning to fail, and it's just you got to go for it. You're never going to get any. You don't get anything if you don't ask for it or try. So
Yeah, just plan and actually take actionable steps, right? You can
absolutely,
plan all day long, but yeah, like you said, just go for it.
you got to make a plan. Got to execute. I mean, it's that basic. There's no high level education to put anything behind that other than I've got to put it on paper and I've got to go for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Eli, really appreciate your time, man. I know this has been a great benefit for our listeners and for myself too. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you and just some great nuggets from today. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for having me. And any other questions with anything, just let me know. I'm always here. Always here to be helpful. So
Thanks, brother. All right,
I
everyone.
appreciate.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, and we'll catch you next time.
It's time to grab your victory. Find us on the web at redseacapitalgroup.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Red Sea Capital Group.